Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to this most amazing panel discussion on what lies ahead for the building material and fitting industry in India. Let me quickly introduce this eminent panelist to my viewers. With us, we have Mr. Ashutosh Lime, Director Head and Head Consulting Analog, Mr. Harleen Oberoi, Senior Vice President and Head Project Management, Tata
Hi
Realty
guys.
and Infrastructure Limited, Mr. Anubhav Gupta, CEO, Chief CSR and Sustainability Vikroli, founder GPL Design Studio, Godrej Properties, Mr. Shijal Mildar, Vice President Operation, CCI Projects Private Limited and Rivali Park, Mr. Jayanand Poddar, President, Real Estate Development, Reliance Industries Limited. Thank you everyone for joining this panel discussion. Uh, uh, you know, sir, for most people, the construction sector is not what first come to mind when we talk about creating an environmentally sustainable future. It is either the energy or utility sector or other core industries such as steel, coal, fertilizers, and others. Yet, globally, the construction sector is estimated to contribute around 40% of the global greenhouse gases emissions. The scope for creating a more sustainable construction sector is quite immense, and the use of environment friendly building material is an important part of it. Every aspect of a building, from the kind of materials used to the construction process itself, offer immense scope to make it more sustainable. Now, let me begin by asking this one important question. Is the construction industry working closely with building material manufacturers to ensure that the final product is environment friendly? So, who would like to take it? Mr. Obora, you can begin answering these questions.
Okay, thank you, Rahul. So one reason why we agreed to this panel discussion was that building materials per se at this moment are bringing tears to eyes. Okay, there have been
I'm going to come back to
abnormal
that question.
variation. There have been abnormal variation in building materials costs in the recent times. Okay, and various factors contributing. So be it the core steel, which has shot up by 35%, or be it maybe the PVC pipes which we use in plumbing and fire and other light services, shoot up by 50-55%. So many other factors contributing, and this really is a cause of concern. And when this kind of a situation arises, you are compelled to look at directions, to localize, find alternatives, to look at materials which are available, which can be utilized. And it's really some way works very symbiotic with, the requirement of a green, doing a green building, or, looking at the sustainability aspects. And that is how, by this compulsion, maybe the developers or, engineers or scientists for that matter, look towards, finding these alternative solutions. And that is how it becomes, or they find applications in our day-to-day constructions.
All right. What do you have to say, Mr. Poddar, about this question?
I think to answer your question very specifically, the developer and the contracting community, they work very closely with the manufacturer. Second thing, it has been a trend now that there are certain stipulations, which we have to comply with. Say, for example, environment requirement. And if you comply all the environment requirement, the project that you conceive or execute, becomes more or less compliant with at least the silver rating of IGBC. So to be very specific, yes, I think the awareness is growing among all the stakeholders that we need to go green, and it will continue. That's my take on this.
Okay. Anubhav, what is your take? Since you have been involved with the Godrej Properties, and sustainability comes with Godrej. So, what is your take on it?
No, I think, firstly, thank you for having me on this program, and I hope everyone's safe and well. I think the data points that you cited, right? 40% of the world's energy is consumed in real estate construction, about 30%, raw material usage, about 33% greenhouse gas emissions, right? I mean, it's obvious that the sector has to do better. Now, the developers or conscious developers have been working with green buildings and norms like that. And obviously, where there is demand, there will be supply. So contractors, manufacturers are doing this. I think what has been more interesting is, one, obviously COVID has happened, and there's a consciousness coming from the customer side as well. So more and more developers are doing this. Regulation, policies are improving to make this happen. ESG norms is something that we are working with. So for example, at Godrej Properties, our goal is to become water positive, carbon neutral, minimize waste to landfill. And, we are carbon neutral across, say, scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emissions. But scope 3, which is one of the most important, is something I think which has bearing on your question. So right from R&D, for material usage over the life cycle, meaning how material is either mined or produced, how it is used, how it is disposed of across the life cycle. All of this people are thinking about. And I think it's a bright future for the industry. I think more and more players are going to come on board. It is inevitable. We have to do this.
Okay. Ashutosh, you have also seen the architectural side. You have been architect yourself too. But tell us about, what is your thought on having building community and the building material community on the same side when it comes to green construction?
Yeah, I think, Rahul, this has been the effort of everybody in the industry, and not only recently. It has been there for a while now to work towards more sustainable future for the industry. The engagement between the producers, the manufacturers, professionals working increased to a good deal. So the end consumer also is particularly interested to know what efforts have been taken by this industry to move towards that sustainability goal. If you look at the commercial buildings, good occupiers or corporates have been always preferring buildings that are developed in a sustainable way, have used sustainable materials and technology. But more importantly now, end consumers on the housing industry, households like yours and mine, especially the school-going kids, are specifically asking this question that, hey, what's the role of in this, so that in requirements of managing the costs, and we have seen many shopping centers, many office buildings, cooperative societies moving towards, say, installing solar paneling. So in a way, not only cost savings is achieved, but also more renewable energy sources are being used. So overall, I think we are more aware, more enthusiastic, and more focused in moving towards that sustainability goal.
Okay, great. Shishir, what are your thoughts on it?
Hi everybody. Thank you, first of all, Rahul, for giving us an opportunity to be associated in this discussion. Thank you so much. So here, sustainability has been going on for a long time. We have always searched for alternative materials, right from replacing the river sand probably 20 years back with the machine sand, and now probably coming up to replacing of timber with WPC and all. The search for alternative materials have always been there, and that's one part of getting closer towards sustainable environment. Second is reducing the consumptions as well, as Ashutosh has pointed out, for solar panels and all, reducing the electrical cost, going for those double glazed windows and all to reduce electricity cost, air conditioning cost. We also need to think about reducing the consumption vis-a-vis the structure is concerned. How we plan, probably the architects needs to think about it, how we plan the layout of the structure, in such a way if we plan it and see the conventional is an RCC form of construction. Post-tensioning is not used more in residential, like it's more of a commercial projects we use post-tensioning. So why don't we try alternative methods of construction in residential? Post-tensioning is one option wherein we can reduce the dead load of the structure and thereby reduce the consumption of materials. We can also look at alternative methodologies of construction like a bubble deck form of slab construction, which is very widely used in Malaysia and all. So here, like actually, the architects and engineers needs to think about alternative forms of construction, meaning the RCC core, like which is 40% of the cost, and as far as the construction debris and the stuff is concerned, the major contributor towards that. So I would say like we need to have a shift in focus, like on the main core construction. We need to think about alternative methods of doing that.
What I've seen or what I've experienced, when it comes to implementing green materials in any construction projects or real estate projects, the cost factors comes in mind to all the builders. Now, the cost factors and the safety, because since it's a green building, I don't know, they may not know how it will, accustom to the weather and etc. etc. So my question is, how such materials plays an important role when it comes to quality, safety, and the sustainability in any construction project. Mr. Poddar, would you like to take up this question?
Thanks, Rahul. I think let's understand few basic things first. When we talk of sustainability and a construction, let's split the whole construction of a structure or a building in two parts. One is the RCC, as rightly said by others, and then there is a finishing and MEP. When it comes to RCC, we consume a lot of cement, steel, aggregates, and they're all natural material. Now, when we think of optimizing this material, there are few things that any structure that we build has to meet certain quality parameters, has to meet certain durability parameters. And there are very well documented either Indian standards or there are a lot of guidelines like National Building Code and all those things. They are very well specified. So you have few options, but to comply all those things. So when we think of optimizing the natural material, there is a limitation in terms of that.
Correct.
That's one thing. Second thing, then comes the question of cost efficiency. Then third is the safety during the construction and post you hand over the project to the end user. The safety of the user is also very, very important, and at the same time sustainability. Now, to address your question, it's a bit a generic question, but if I have to say, there are few materials nowadays available. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
What happened?
Geo.
Well, he qualified that he's not on Geo.
All right. So instead of Mr. Poddar, Mr. Oberoi, would you like to answer this question?
Yes, see, my take on this is, we have an underlying principle in all our developments at Tata that we are going to do only green buildings and nothing else. Okay. And once we make that commitment, in fact, we are now pioneering certain newer concept in the, our large new developments. For example, a large development we are doing in Bangalore, which we are rolling out. It has been forecasted that Bangalore is a city which will run short of water in days to come. Okay, maybe 2025 or something like that. So under those circumstances, we can now not only confine ourselves to saying that we will do a green building. In fact, in a large development, which is about 200 plus acres for us, we are partnering with GBCI with the endeavor to do a green community or a sustainable community development, which virtually means that we are committing ourselves to a zero energy zero water and zero waste kind of, campus. It's going to be a mixed use development. Okay. So something which borders a day-to-day, occupant of a building. Now, obviously, and they realize they're hitting by it. So if there's a power shortage, if there's a water shortage, water is a perennial problem. So if you are not going to provide solutions, and that solutions can come in many forms, for as simple as if you can install aerators in your water taps, you can save a huge quantity of water. Okay.
Right.
Just a very basic ingredient for any building product, for that matter, which finds application in your residences, can make a huge amount of impact or difference to the end user and their day-to-day life. Okay, so it is now seeping in, and they come with the question. They always come with the question whenever they're buying a dwelling unit, that what is it that has gone into making this up, and how is it going to benefit me? So all such investments into building materials or the products or the equipment, they come with a payback period. They may come with the initial bit of initial investment, but it will surely help in reducing your energy consumption, lowering your energy bills or water or otherwise. So people are aware, people demand this, and that is how we deliver.
Correct. Mr. Poddar, could you please complete the point you are suggesting?
Yeah, sorry, it got interrupted. But see, there are a few very interesting developments that are happening in the country, where how can we reduce the material consumption in structure? There are, new concepts like, the phosphogypsum wall panels, and where I was surprised, even the sand can be reduced up to 85%. The steel can be reduced up to by 60-65%. So these kind of researches are happening in the country, and we need to encourage this. We need to start using this, kind of material in few of the building materials. Rightly, what Arlene was saying, of course, the water consumption is another very glaring example, and a study of concrete technology where you can optimize the water cement ratio to a certain extent, not 100%, to a certain extent, also need to be undertaken. And we need to make, I think there is a need of greater awareness within the contractors, builders, and all stakeholders. How can this be done? Can it be done? Yes, it can be done.
Okay, great.
That's my
great. My next question is for Anubhav. As rightly said by Mr. Oberoi and Mr. Poddar, that green materials are there. The cost effectiveness, sustainability. There are various things attached to it. But when it comes to application and the supervision, you may have a nice paint, a green paint, but the painter is not good. What is the future of that project? You may have a good material to use in your projects, but the implementer itself or the supervision is not there, right? Then there is a point of the concern of safety is there. So what is your take on it? While procuring such materials, what factors you see? Plus, how supervision and the skilled laborers are also important while applying such materials.
No, thanks for the question. I think we have to maybe simplify this in two parts. We look at our sustainability objectives across what we call 6 P's, right? People, process, product, partnership, planet, and profit, right? So that is one framework that we look at. And it's very important whenever we talk about sustainability is to look at a life cycle of that, right? If you look at only a siloed approach, it becomes a problem. Now, construction or real estate tends to have a fairly complex and fragmented value chain, meaning I as a developer will have to have a number of contractors, maybe a primary contractor, that person will have another contractor. Then there is, laborers, some laborers are unskilled, some are skilled. Now, I think a lot of this obviously depends on working with the right partners. So, the partnership part of it comes into play. A lot of this is about the right kind of training, the right kind of measures, the right kind of structure that we put forward for our projects, project management structures, what the supervisions are, are we using supervisors versus engineers on our sites and things like that. So I think a lot of this is about setting up the project properly. When I moved here, I spent a lot of time overseas. And when I moved here, it was a humbling experience for me because it wasn't a direct application of what happens in England or in America that you can do in India, right?
Correct.
There are certain strengths that we have here, which we must leverage. There are certain problems with the fragmented value chain, which we must address. So I'll give you a small example, right? I mean, we are finding, for example, compliance or, through our tendering process, when we are selecting our contractors, we are finding that an effective mechanism. So we are asking them that, look, you have to report what your electricity usage is going to be, what your waste footprint is going to look like, and things like that. Why are we interested in that? Because we want to make sure that our own footprint of business has the lowest possible, let's say, carbon footprint or the lowest possible usage in terms of water. Now, on the customer side, it's interesting. I've always used an analogy, that in India, when you go out and buy a car, you ask, kitna average regi, right? Only if, customers were asking this same thing of their buildings. And mathematics shows, right? The cost of construction of a green building versus, let's say, a non-green building, whatever that is, would be anywhere between 5 to 7%. Now, as a developer, I literally have no evidence that I'm going to, or there's willingness to pay in the market. I put in that infrastructure. The customer comes in. I have exited out as a developer. The customer actually makes the best benefit of it if they use it properly, right? Today, there are measurement mechanisms that can show us. Earlier, we used to talk about post-occupancy research and things like that, which were getting complicated. Who's going to let you come into your house and let you measure all these things? Today, home automation software can tell you that if you put on your AC for 2 hours, what is your, electricity usage? How much carbon have you, all of that stuff can, and I think measurement influences behavior. So I feel like measurement has to happen in this entire value chain so that people know how to optimize it better.
But let me ask this question to Shijit. Taking it forward from Anubhav, do you think that answering those questions to your customers would be tougher for a developer while selling your project? For example, if I come as a customer to you and I'll ask you, इधर का leakage कितने साल के बाद होने वाला है? Would that be tough to ask you, and answering those questions on sustainability, answering those questions on how long this project will survive, how long am I going to face the leakages issue? So do you think that you would be, as a project developer, fine, it's fine to answer those questions of the customers?
Yeah. See what happens. Just carrying forward from Anubhav's response. Whenever a new material comes into the construction industry, working abroad and working in India is two different ball games altogether. So there, the awareness is there internationally. The people are trained. The method statements are finalized, and then the execution happens. Here, the method statements might be there in few established companies, but still, whether it goes down the line or not is a big question mark. So one is the trainings to be arranged to the right skill set of people, and then the monitoring. The monitoring is the key. So probably we need to get into those mobile apps wherein we can monitor the quality and progress real time, and it gets escalated. The MIS is seen at the topmost level, and the responses, the maker and checker responses are quick. And to develop it further as well, we can always think about connecting the customers, the end customers, with the progress of on site as well. The quality part, how we have built. I was associated with Burj Khalifa, so it was a very prestigious project for us. While commuting from our place to the work place, looking at those banners, history rising on the streets of Dubai, it was with a lot of pride we used to enter that construction site. So a person, we are not building houses, we are building homes for people. It's correct. The people who are going to stay over there. So if you can think about giving them the complete life cycle, how we are building right from an empty land, how we are building till delivering the keys. So that's something which ensures the quality, which assures the customer that the developer is banked on target, the assurance, the quality assurance is there. And as far as the other questions are concerned, the leakages and other stuff, I would say like if you do your works properly, the right way, using the right materials, with the right methodology, so you won't face those problems. So that's something like we should be focusing on rather than giving planning for the response. I'm sorry, Rahul. Like I won't like to do that. Like I would like to make my house in order and ensure that the job is done the right way the first time.
Correct, correct. Ashutosh, your take on the procurement strategies. You have been Anarock has been on board, consulting many number of real estate projects across India. What is your take on the procurement strategies when it comes to building material?
Rahul, I think more and more people are now understanding that in any real estate project cost, the major component, often the largest component, is the land cost, which fewer people would have understood some years back. So the impact of materials or technology or monitoring, etc., it has got influence, yes, but only to an extent, especially in big cities where land cost is very high. You won't really make millions by cutting corners and compromising on really some materials, some technology, some monitoring. So we have seen that it helps to take the end consumer in confidence, helping the consumer to understand the broad heads of project cost. And once that's communicated in a transparent, honest manner, in fact, it is the end consumer who kind of comes back saying, hey, don't compromise. I'm willing to pay a little bit extra for that quality, for that workmanship. If I get more safety, if I get quality work, neat, clean work, environmentally sustainable way. So I think here taking the consumer in confidence, helping the consumer understand the project dynamics a bit is important. Those developers who have done that have found very good response from the buyers. And that's why when it comes to procurement strategy, I think good developers we have seen take that responsibility of acting on the end consumer's behalf, because end consumer is hardly going to ever interact with the suppliers, with the material producers, or even architects of that project. It will be a very few occasions where they would get that chance. So good developers will take that onus on them of acting on behalf of end consumers in their interest, and that's how they have built those names and trust and brands, that when they're putting something, their name in the firing line, which means that they are actually acting in good faith and for kind of prudent benefits for the end consumer. So I think procurement strategy, I think it's more and more getting focused towards the best and optimal, I would say, because it's always a trade-off between quality, price, time, availability. All that has to be kind of juggled simultaneously. But the most optimal kind of combination, that's where the kind of goal of procurement team and project executive team is, at least with the good developers.
Okay. Mr. Oberoi, this next question is for you. Apart from quality and safety, how an association with a stronger and best brands plays an important role in any real estate project?
Okay. So this is something I live with every day. The brand, we got a powerful brand. Okay. And I really, when I took up this mandate, I knew where I'm getting into. So this hard hat of Tata weighs very heavy on my shoulders and neck. Okay. And not unfounded, people have very high expectations from the brand. So they choose, so other people represented here will, at some time of their career might have experienced this. When they choose a Tata house, it is much more than, what is being on offer in a printed document or an agreement. They look forward to the whole circle around you 360 degree, that what is in it that Tata is doing beyond their commitments.
Correct.
Okay. So when there is such a, solid, rock solid trust in the brand, it becomes all the more important for people to, not shrug, or they have no leeway, but to own and the responsibility and accountability and deliver. So anything which goes into my project, and as I said, we are committed. So we do only green buildings, and now moving on to green communities also. But anything which goes into making the building, is something which we will thoroughly do in a very measured, calculated way, time-tested approach. And obviously, it doesn't mean that we are blocked ourselves to, the neo technology. So on one aspect of whatever is newer in the market, be it external insulation for finishing systems, we have experimented, we brought this. If anything is required for, improving the environment of the communities where we are building, for example, in Delhi, to cite a case, almost 4 months in a year, the whole city is shut down. Okay, there's a huge amount of particulate emission in NCR area. So we are conscious, and we now have, worked out partnering with a technology firm to control that for DG emissions, etc. and all. So while brand brings that trust, but it also, makes you hugely responsible and conscious towards your deliveries. And that is what you have to live up to, Rahul.
Okay. Now, let me come back to Anubhav. What is your take on it? Associating with the best brands in the industry, and does it give a project, a real estate project, a better sales value?
So I agree with what Mr. Oberoi said. I mean, similarly to the Tatas, we have a strong mother brand, and by that virtue, there's a certain base threshold of putting in or doing a project in a certain way, right? And for us, the struggle really is not on the side of whether brand translates into let's say better consumer sales or whatever. It is about actually enhancing our mother brand. What next, right? Why should somebody come and buy a Godrej home, right? And now that we are also, I mean, let's face it, right? We are competing with the Tatas, with the Mahindras. I mean, these are very strong brands, and rightly so, right? There is durability that's been established. And as more and more corporate players come into the market, I think, it's great for the customer, because they know that the base threshold has been met. And really what they have to look forward to is what happens next. As far as partnerships go, I think, clearly brand perceptions play a big part in real estate, right? So if I were to break down, in a home, for example, CP, sanitary fittings, white goods, kitchens, there are certain brands which are accepted or more accepted in the market. I mean, simply put, I would say that a lot of these brands, like our brand, have been time tested. There is a reason why these brands are accepted. There may be a premium on these brands, but at the end of the day, if I'm selling a house, I should think about it from the customer's point of view. What would I put in my own house and why, right? And then I would do a value trade-off on that. Now, my challenge is I'm also catering to a customer which buys real estate for, let's say, 3, 4, 5,000 rupees a square foot. I'm also catering to a customer that says, that buys property for 25, 30,000 rupees a square foot, right? So this idea of keeping a base standardized threshold, but at the same time, trying to give better value to our customers is something that we constantly strive to. We are working with these top brands. I personally prefer to not go with the glossy side of marketing and brands. I prefer to go with data points. So if I'm out in the market to buy a tile, I want to understand what the warpage is, what not just because it's got a great name. I would want to go back to the basic first principles. What is the best size? If I'm out there to buy marble, similarly, I want to understand all the kind of things from the vendor, right? And then put those things in almost on behalf of a customer. And, I think that we often talk about, the point of sale, but we don't talk about what happens after the point of sale, right?
Correct.
For a lot of brands, my expectations for my own brand and from my vendors would be after sales service. If something goes wrong, I need to be able to go back and say, look, guys, we did our best, but it went wrong. We need to fix this in a certain way, right? And then the last piece I would say is, it is important to me that that there is measurable data that shows, it's not someone's word or because my brand is strong. And I'm constantly telling my teams as well that, one could get very easily complacent to say, okay, it's a Godrej thing, but let's show by measurement. Somebody talked about, I think Harleen talked about, particle matter in NCR. Similarly, we had the same problem, and air was hugely polluted. When we went out there to centralize the air purification system, actually the selection of partner took us a long time. The actual technology and implementation didn't take that long. We wanted to make sure the values are a match. We wanted to make sure that, we want the same things. And it wasn't necessarily about commercials or money in the first instance. So I think there is a value that exists in good, strong brands, and the partnerships talk about the match in that value to give the best to the customer.
Okay, Mr. Poddar, do you also go with the data points when it comes to associating with the brands for your projects?
Yes, I think that's very, very important. At the end of the day, what happens when you present a product to the end customer. Now the customers are also very well educated. They have started asking these pointed questions. They started asking this pointed question. Okay, if you are providing, this kind of CP sanitary ware, are you going to give the guarantee in our name, or it's going to be, in the builder's name? So I think this is very good. It's very good.
The awareness is happening.
Yes, I think the customers are getting aware and aware. More and more awareness is coming. They have started asking for that. They have started demanding, this kind of documentation. Your second question is, does it add value? Of course, it adds value, because when you buy a branded product, it complies with certain stated quality, safety, durability, and the sustainability of the product along with other parts. Of course, the cost efficiency is also a very, very important thing.
Correct.
So it makes big sense.
Okay. Now let me come back to Ashutosh. If well-known brand gives better sales value, as I rightly said by Mr. Poddar, then do we have a level playing field for the homegrown brands in India? Let me have your view on it.
I think, yes, the field is now much more conducive for new entrants. I think now that there is more openness in the market, more avenues for the consumers to get information. Now there have been now efforts by policymakers to ensure that information asymmetry reduces, if not eliminated, in near future. You have RERA website where the developers have to announce so many things. So I think now the situation is much more conducive for more players to come in. In terms of developer community also, we have seen that consolidation of developers has happened. Less serious players have exited the field. More corporate players are coming in who have in their DNA to test and encourage quality rather than only the name. So I think the way real estate activity is going to increase in future, because we have a perennial shortage of housing, especially in the urban context. We need to construct so much and across the country that you will definitely need to bring on board the local players, the newer entrants, to keep pace with the construction activity that India needs to see. So I think from a policy perspective, market perspective, the role of technology, social media, information technology, I think I don't think it was as conducive as today as some years back. But yes, now you can really make a good product, a good service, and making a name for yourself, I would say, is slightly easier than earlier.
Okay, Shishir, what is your thought on it? Does your real estate projects give chances to the homegrown brands in India?
Yeah, see here, like it's very important that we need to think about the mother brand. See, brands definitely helps us sell the property quickly, but as Jayant had mentioned, there is a cost to the brands as well. And
Correct.
your second question, the local brands, do they stand a chance? Definitely, yes, they do stand a chance because of the cost part. And as Anubhav had said, like there was one advertisement, "Dikhao pe na jao, apni akal lagao." So it's actually need to be applied in the procurement decisions which we take. Like so, we need to be prudent enough to understand what is going to sell and add value. There are brands like Maruti, Toyota, and Mercedes. All three are brands, reputed brands. Brand is what like brand is a connect to people. Like people connect with a certain thing because of the quality, delivery, consistently over a period of time. So here, like it all depends upon your mother brand, what segment you are building up. Harleen might be building in let's say outskirts of Mumbai and selling at 5,000 rupees per square feet, and in South Mumbai and selling at probably, I don't know, maybe he might not share, say 60 or 80,000 rupees per square feet. So depending upon that, like we need to take a call, like whether to go with a Mercedes or a Maruti. And as far as homegrown brands are concerned, like we get into construction. Let's say we have got the starting from the core construction, we have got Leighton, Multiplex, Samsung, and we have got the homegrown brands like L&Ds, Shapoorjis, and GMCs. Definitely the cost part, they're right up to the mark. Like so, we don't need to be the consultant as well. They're right up to the mark. Yes, in few areas, as far as the elevators are concerned, we are still not like, and there is a risk element involved over there. Like
Correct.
if something goes wrong, it directly affects the life and safety of that individual. It affects
Absolutely.
the mother brand. So we need to take a calculative decision on the procurement part, and of course, we need to support our local brands, and the technology upgradation can happen, the engineering can happen in the office, but on site, see, for example, if you apply for a structural consultancy, a structural design certificate, the MCGM gives you initially a 7-story certificate. You can design a building up to 7th story. Then they review it over a period of time. Sab kuch theek chal raha hai, koi building gira nahi, no issues. Then they upgrade it to 28 story, and then upgrade it to 60 stories. So same way, like we need to give chance to local brands. We need to try it out in some projects where the risk level is less, and then like upgrade it. Like once you feel that yes, this brand is serious, and today they've just started. Maybe 10 years from now, they would be a brand per se in what we perceive it as a brand. So definitely yes, we do give chance to local players, but we always take those appropriate decisions which would help us balance out the sales part and our mother brand as well.
Well, there has been a complaint. I've spoken to many local brands here in India. They have this particular complaint that all the well-known players, the real estate players, developers want to associate themselves with the international brands, not with the homegrown. How true is it? Anyone can answer.
See, not really. Like maybe a few buildings in South Mumbai mainly, wherein you have got a big margin. They won't like to take chances. Like they would like to sell off immediately. Like I'm sure Ashutosh will agree on that. When you have got a big margin, you don't need to think about costing. Like so, just go with those bigger names and then finish off the project and encash the credibility of those big players, and sell off your inventory as soon as possible. But when you are thinking about development, for example, us, Rivali Park, CCI, we are at Borivali, close to National Park. So here, the rates and all are challenging as compared to a South Mumbai project. So we definitely need to think about at what cost it is coming, and based on that, judiciously, we need to take a decision on that.
So,
Rahul, the big challenge the brand carries and the dilemma always is, I'll tell you, when I'm walking with a customer on a development and then say, okay, why don't you do this road as a concrete road? Why is it a blacktop? And
Correct.
I really find it hard to explain him. I said, listen, a group company makes Tata Nano as well as they make Jaguar. Okay, but the expectations in the brand are I pay for Nano, but give me a Jaguar engine fitted in. Okay.
Okay.
So, so this is this is bountiful and many, but that is also is something which is associated with the brand, and you will live with it every day.
All right.
Rahul, my advice to these brands, homegrown brands, which are saying this to you, would be that even they have an advantage, right? They have their advantage is what? I mean, the big brands do have the marketing rupees, they do have these big contracts, but the newer brands can be more innovative, can be more agile. They have access to technology materials which perhaps these other brands never had when they started their production. They might have an advantage on price and cost. Plus, I think a lot of the developer community now has become very savvy and applied. They want to co-create a lot of these things because the demographics are changing. Things are changing in the market. And, for example, if I go to a name brand and I want customization and co-creation, it might actually be quite difficult for me to do that because they said, well, here's the catalog and this is what's available. So I'm thinking, okay, fine, I have to force fit my requirement into that. But what if it's specific? So, my sense would be, I think one needs to see the glass half full rather than half empty. I do think it is a little bit of a factor of choice, comfort, tried and tested, but I do think the future is bright. I do think they need to make these strong efforts. Innovation and technology are going to play a huge role in springboarding their brands. Because if you look at the recent past, I mean, we didn't know of Uber, we didn't know of Airbnb, we didn't know of any of this, right? I mean, these guys just came in and disrupted the entire industry. And real estate specifically is one of those industries that are waiting to be disrupted. Since the invention of the elevator, there hasn't truly been a path-breaking, invention or a big innovation that has come in and changed the course of history, right?
Correct.
So, prop tech and things like that. I think there is a very strong future for the new brands.
Even the trust matters, like of any brand.
You have to build it, Rahul. You have to build it, right? The disadvantage with the new players is that, look, these old players have had the time to build the trust. Now, the new players, I'm new in the market. I might be very sincere. I might want to do the right thing, but I have to get on that journey to build the trust.
But that can only happen when they get a chance. What is your what do you say, Mr. Kotak? If you want to build a trust, okay, as a brand, they need to get a chance. That's the complaint.
So they definitely get the chance on the cost part initially, and then later on, the consistency they need to ensure, like on the delivery front, on the quality front. So one project they finish ticking all boxes on the quality and the delivery front. They get the second, third chance, and then they deliver over there, and it keeps on building. But definitely they get the chance initially on the cost front because the well-known players comes at a cost. So the local players, the new players, they have a reduced cost right now. So they get that advantage. Definitely they get that chance.
Okay.
Yeah. Rahul, I'll cite you an example, and Anubhav and everybody will agree with me out here. See, this tile industry, a couple of years back, and it started with a small origin in a place called Morbi in Gujarat.
Yes, okay? Exactly.
And each one of us have grown with that. We have been watching that industry. Okay. Today, I think each one of us, if you have to take a call, they will be there in your list of procurement. You cannot avoid, you cannot, take them out. So this is one classic case of homegrown industries over a period of time. Maybe it took them a decade, but they have built up that reputation. They have scaled up their operations. They are now imbibing that quality assurance and certification program in their products. So they are fighting it out, and they are there. We use number of such tiles manufactured there in many of our projects.
Correct. Now let me bring this important question for you all. When Mr. Harleen started, he mentioned about how this pandemic and related restriction and with the the second wave has increased the cost of material. We have seen the 35% steep hike over the last 1 year. So going forward, what lies ahead for both the construction and building material sector? Uh, Ashutosh, would you like to take up this question? And
And I think, Rahul, I think we need to view the contracting kind of standards or contracting, I would say standard conditions differently. I think it will be helpful to move towards more robust or more flexible terms of procurement. Because in the short term, there will be volatility, there will be ups and downs. There is a fair degree of uncertainty for maybe a couple of years more, after which things would settle down and it will be more like business as usual kind of condition. But because real estate industry employs contracts on a relatively longer tenure, often there are repeat businesses that this industry gives to vendors, suppliers, contractors, etc. Because you can't really build anything overnight. I mean, it takes time, and relationships are formed. And that's why it allows the contracting structure to be different, more flexible, more robust, allowing to respond to those volatilities. Afterwards, it will be again, it will get more kind of standardized anyway in a business as usual kind of situation. But I think in the current situation, I think it's time that the stakeholders extend that helping hand towards each other. That's what we have seen that has happened. Retailers and developers have collaborated. Contractors, material suppliers and developers have collaborated. Because everyone understands that nobody can walk alone. One has to kind of lend hand of support and walk together. So I think that with that understanding and with that kind of flexibility in contracting, I think that's something which could be a solution, and this industry can really show the way, because it's not kind of an overnight kind of relationship. The relationships are here for a longer tenure, and that's why I think this. I do believe that this industry should show that guiding light.
Mr. Poddar, your thoughts?
I think this is a very, very important point what Ashutosh started. I think what need to happen in future, my take on this is, somewhere we have to move away from construction as a construction towards manufacturing.
That's a good point.
And second thing, what is happening, more and more mechanization need to come into picture. The moment more standardization, more mechanization comes into picture, your labor requirement reduces. Your predictability, your ability to predict, how the project will be completed enhances a great by absolutely, I think 3, 4, 5 times, 10 times. I think also we need to understand the newer technologies where in conventionally we used to do maybe one slab in every 10 days. I think somewhere we have to move to 2 days a cycle time. And there are people in the industry in this country who are actually casting the slab every second day, and probably 18 days, the structure is erected in less than 42 days. And there are this kind of, projects happening in the country. Somewhere we as a stakeholder need to own this newer products. Somewhere we have to use our brand, evaluate the technology appropriately and put our brand behind that. Okay, we stand by this. Let's try this, make it successful, and allow people also to, take it forward. And the last point on this, somewhere the whole community need to move away from the contractor client or vendor client relationship to the partnership or owner mindset. This mindset, from this, typical thekedari or contracting is very, very important now. Let there be more transparency. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying that, the stakeholder need to take each other for a ride. No, that's not the right spirit. Somewhere the project need to be given the first priority.
But
the customer satisfaction of getting the product in his lap before time at the stated quality with the safety factors need to be put ahead of everybody's interest. When
Okay,
this
but-
happens, this co-ownership will automatically get established.
All right. But my point is, you made a statement where you said mechanization and standardization will not involve that much of laborers in your project. That's kind of, you are actually promoting the unemployment. I mean, isn't that a setback for the economy?
Not really. Not really. Today today every day we are reading, that we need so many workers on this project, and we have only 30% workers, 40% workers. The projects are getting delayed because of non-availability of workers or non-availability of right skill.
Okay.
Let's understand one thing. We do not have any formal education for building the competency in the people who are working on ground. Whether he is a mason, whether he is a carpenter, whether he is anybody and everybody, you look at, except for few plumber and electricians, those kind of things. So somewhere when you go into the mechanization, the repetitive nature of the work will help developing better competence.
Okay.
It will actually generate more value for the employee, as an employer and employee relationship.
I agree with Janan, because that's another deep subject in itself, okay, which industry is
Correct.
developing, and we may need to
Another round of
develop it
discussion
sometime.
is required for them.
Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Rahul, I just want to say one thing. I became engineer quite a few years back, and my son, he's studying the same subjects, and I don't understand why he's continuing with the same subjects, and he doesn't learn what we are actually doing at site. I have no ability to control what he is learning. I am just a helpless father, and somewhere I am saying, don't take it otherwise. All people need to take this in the right spirit. Somewhere all these stakeholders need to wake up. We need to train our future generation in the right skills. Why a civil engineer learns irrigation, hydraulics, RCC and everything, and he doesn't learn what is project management, he doesn't learn what is contracts, he doesn't learn, how the shuttering is done. I think somewhere this whole shift need to happen.
Okay. Valid point.
But need to be, that's my personal point.
Okay. Now, since we are running short of time, I will give you all the 30 seconds to make the last comment on, your last, suggestions on. Can you all suggest key factors for creating a strong brand identity for our homegrown players? So let me start with Mr. Oberoi.
So, sustained quality over a period of time.
Okay.
That's a basic mantra. You give a good quality and sustain it over a period of duration, you will evolve as a brand.
Ashutosh?
Yeah, I think it's demonstrate consistency and quality, and you don't need to promote anything else. The users will promote your brand for you then.
All right. Anubhav?
I've always believed in, I think we live in the age of innovation. So I think innovation, research and data measurement backed innovation is something which is key to me. And the second point is one has to think long-term and sustainably. And if one thinks in these two parameters, I think there is enough there for customizing your toolkit to not only build a brand, but to sustain it and to ensure that whether you are a B2B or a B2C player, I think the value match will happen.
Shijil?
The three key points: quality, on-time delivery, consistency on the first and second point. So, as a mother brand, to develop the mother brand, I would say sustainability. The key elements remains the same: reduce the consumption, and second is think about alternative materials. And your previous question about 35%. Actually, my take on that is different. Like, I feel the cost has increased, but not up to 35%. It would be around 20%. You can check the WPI indices for materials and the labor rates which are published. So it's around 20%. It's not 35% increase. That's it.
Sure.
Just one last thing, Rahul. I just wanted to add on the commodity prices increasing. Again, we must learn to look at the glass half full. This is happening because of a few reasons. If I were to advise my customers, actually speaking, those that are sitting on the fence should actually go out and buy real estate right now. Because whatever these commodity prices are, which are increasing, if they do end up being passed over to the consumer, it will happen with some lag, because real estate is one of those very interesting industries where today I do something and over a period of time, the real estate gets produced, right? And then in the short to medium term, probably supply and demand will correct. We do know something called COVID happened. And, I think that has misaligned a lot of these things. And, from a medium to long term perspective, I think the prices would probably correct and get back to some level of normalcy.
All right. Mr. Pothal, your suggestions for the homegrown players?
I would only suggest one thing to, these new players or the homegrown players. Whenever you make a presentation, please focus on 5 things: quality, safety, cost, sustainability, and how that adds value to the customer satisfaction.
Correct.
I think then they don't need really, to build the brand. The owners in the industry will own their brand and they will promote it. I think that's the best piece of advice I can.
Correct. All right. That's a really wonderful discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it, each other's company virtually. Okay. So on this note, let me thank you all once again for sharing your valuable thoughts, your time on this subject, and being part of this panel discussion. So have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.